This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson. Hello, yes, welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show. My name is Harry Wilkinson, and this is the show where we take a look at the days and weeks events, happenings in the world, happenings here in our own little spot in the world, international news, technology, the environment, all of the things that we hear about, we interact with, all of the stories that we interact with throughout our week, through our various forms of media, our ever-increasing forms, it seems. Everything from your smartphone to your Facebook and other forms of social media, to more traditional forms, everything that we interact with that can start to feel a bit overwhelming sometimes. So we take a step back and we take a look at all of these things from a higher perspective. And what I mean by a higher perspective is coming from the concept, coming from the idea or the awareness that we are more than just what appears to be going on around us, that we are more than just what appearances are. And I go so far as to say we are more than our physical bodies, that we go beyond that, that we have a higher self, if you will, that is constantly working, constantly creating, and constantly creating scenarios and situations and ideas and energies through which we can expand and become more of who and what we truly are. And if you've listened to the show before, you know that I always say who and what we are is connection, divine mind, oneness. And through that oneness that we are, we create an amazing array of diversity. I liken it to the patterns that shoot off from a crystal or from a diamond when the light hits it. Each little part of the diamond creates something different. And that's what I think in terms of divine mind is what we are. And so our higher selves, for that purpose, are constantly creating new and different situations in which we can experience things. And ultimately we are experiencing that which we truly are not. Especially when we are experiencing such things as fear and restriction and perhaps anxiety, which we'll talk a little bit more about today. On that highest level, we don't experience those things because we are beyond that. We are greater than that. But on the mundane level, if you will, on the level of our smaller selves, we do experience these things, and we experience these things so that we can know that they're not who and what we are. And we learn that by growing beyond them, as intense and powerful as those energies can feel at times. And I can speak from personal experience in that I've gone through it many times, and I'm going through it again. And it's an amazing thing to think about when you go back through your life and the things that you have overcome, the things that you have evolved from, things that perhaps you couldn't have even imagined you could get through, but you did. All of these things show to me that these experiences are what we create for ourselves to expand. And so that's how I approach all of the different things that you might come across in the media, things that might be feel overwhelming, that might be upsetting. We take a look at it from that higher perspective, and we take that step back. It empowers us. It makes us more able to interact with, get through it without feeling victimized in a way, or feeling overwhelmed. I keep using that word, but it does seem to express that feeling at times. So on today's show, we're going to talk about a favorite theme of the show, which is embracing ideas of the unknown. And we're going to talk about spring cleaning, specifically spring cleaning, perhaps your diet and your daily activities, because it is sort of spring. In many parts of the country, if you are on the East Coast like I am, we are getting spring and not spring. There seems to be a real mighty struggle between spring, which the calendar says it is, and winter's reluctance, it seems, to let go of its grasp. And so for April, unexpected things developing, things changing sort of almost immediately as you set them in motion. I often make references to astrology on this program, and I understand that not everybody believes in, agrees with, or understands astrology, but I use it as a way of sort of illustrating life situations. I find it handy in that sense. So what I can tell you, and this is something that even people that have very limited knowledge of horoscopes and astrology talk about all the time, we are in a Mercury retrograde period. And everybody talks about those periods as being periods of confusion and chaos. And they can be. Mercury retrograde does tend to complicate communications, make you think a little bit extra, or go back and go over things that you might have missed. And Mercury retrograde does indicate changeability quite often, but I believe that there's other things going on astrologically too, which make this a very changeable time. Perhaps with some of the larger planets, such as Neptune, which does bring sort of a hazy quality, and Uranus, which is a planet of surprise. So I'm certainly going through that. I know lots of other people who seem to be going through that. So perhaps you are too. And if you are, just know that you're not alone. Is good to do today, because to be able to embrace that, embrace the not knowing, helps you specifically through these kinds of times. Of course, we like to have certainty. Certainty brings us a certain feeling of stability. But often that same certainty is illusory, because the things that we feel we can be certain about are a small fraction of what actually is in the world. And even those things that we feel certain about, particularly, science and mathematics and other areas of empirical sorts of knowledge, even those things can change. And I'm going to give you an example of that, scientific wise. But first, I want to tell you about, since we were talking about weather and winter cold hanging in there, there's actually a lot of stuff going on. So there's an article here in our local newspaper on how the winter cold is marching on and setting the stage for some extremely violent spring storms. So apparently a combination of series of 3 storm systems and a blast of Arctic air are prompting forecasts of an extended cold snap across the U.S., with temperatures in some parts of the north central states expected to dip as low as 30 degrees below normal. The regions expected to be affected include Upper Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and New England. So if you're in any one of those areas, you're certainly feeling this right now. According to Mashable's Andrew Friedman, these February-like conditions that are visiting the continent, 12 inches of snow is forecast for higher elevations in West Virginia, and Maryland, with Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston possibly seeing lighter snowfall. I believe they did get that snowfall over like Saturday in some of the further out regions, but I'll check on that. Normal temperatures for these regions this time of year would be in the 50 to 60 degree range, but conditions are nowhere near that warm. As an example, the National Weather Service is forecasting a daily high of just 21 degrees for Minneapolis on Friday. The center of the polar vortex is currently parked over Hudson's Bay, pushing colder air south and so these are all kind of weather events that may have some basis in the kind of global warming effects that we've been experiencing. So, just to let you know, that cold, and if you're in one of those areas that I talked about, is scheduled to stick around for a little bit longer. Now, I wanted to talk about changeabilities of things that we think we know, because there's a new article that came out last week on dark matter. Now, if you remember, and we've talked about dark matter a lot, dark matter is the stuff of the universe that we can't see and that we don't know about. It's considered to be all mass, but it's a mass that does not become substance. And what's happened is that scientists believe they found a galaxy so is